Welcome to Returning to Soul, a podcast for lawyers and other high achievers seeking deeper meaning, purpose, and fulfillment in their work and lives. My name is Jessie Brown. I practiced law for 15 years before becoming a coach and purpose guide for lawyers and other high achievers. I also work as a meditation teacher, breathwork facilitator, sound healer, and forest bathing guide. And I facilitate retreats in Sedona, Arizona. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Peggy O'Neill. Peggy is a lawyer, a business advisor, and strategist, and she also worked in the Clinton administration. So Peggy, I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited to be with you, Jessie.
Yes, this is so great. And I'll share with our guests. So I first connected with Peggy on LinkedIn. And, if somebody had told me like 5 years ago I would be making these kind of connections on LinkedIn, I would not have believed them. But I've made such, quality connections. It's been amazing. And your content, Peggy, really inspired me. I find it very thought-provoking and interesting and helpful and needed. You're like a bright light and a fresh voice on LinkedIn. So I thought Peggy would be a great guest to, have on the show. And I would love if you could take a moment just to share with us. I know you have done a couple of career pivots, and a lot of our audience are interested in potentially doing a career pivot or perhaps adding like a side business or something like that to help, do more meaningful work that they find more fulfilling. So I'd love if you could share a little bit about your first career pivot.
Well, thank you for saying the nice things about my posts. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'd been practicing law for 12 years, and I'd had a great legal career. Bill and Hillary Clinton were teachers of mine in law school. They helped me find my first job without me asking them. And then he was elected attorney general and offered me a job as an assistant attorney general. Then he was governor. He offered me a job as purchasing director. And then he was defeated. And so then I was in the general business practice of law, doing contract negotiation, going before city planning boards and commissions and the city council, because we had development clients, real estate development clients and construction company clients. And so had that sort of practice. And then I did a human potential movement training in Dallas. I was living in Little Rock then and did this training in Dallas. Oh, okay, it's fine. But then I was involved with them for a while and just fell in love with the work that company was doing. And then at the same time, somebody that was in this human potential movement, growth, who we are as human beings and how can we have the lives we really want and the world we really want, brought a coaching company to Little Rock to teach a coaching course. So in addition to this training I was involved in and volunteering a lot for, I was taking this coaching course and just was intrigued. I'm like, how am I, at that time I was in my mid-30s, how am I in my mid-30s and I don't know this about human nature and human beings and how we create results and how we are in relationship. And that was just amazing to me, that with great education, obviously. And but then I was told I was on a list of people they wanted to interview for this training company that they wanted to interview for a job. And I thought, oh, well, okay. Everybody said, don't worry, they won't offer you a job. Just take the free trip to San Francisco and then whatever. So I took the trip, and sure enough, when I was out there, they did offer me a job. So I'm like, okay. So I did say yes, because they were saying, well, are you in? Are you going to do it or not? And that's part of that shtick with that company. And so then I came back and they wanted me out in San Francisco in 3 weeks. And so I said, anyway. But I told the law firm after a week. I thought about it for a week. I told the law firm and never looked back. So I had a 3-day drive from Little Rock to San Francisco, and I thought that'll be the real tell here, because if I'm nervous or going, oh my gosh, what did I do? And I'm not a bridge burner, so people were saying, hey, if it doesn't work out, come back, you can work for us. So I did have that kind of environment around me. But I took this leap. What I discovered, because at the time, as you can hear, or maybe you can hear, it just seemed like happenstance, right? Like, okay, let's go do something else. I'd change jobs. A lot of lawyers don't change jobs a lot, I don't think, or at least they weren't back then. And I'd had enough jobs that I felt comfortable that it'll all work out. But it wasn't really until looking back that I could see why that was so easy and why it was a natural move for me, because I really got into the practice of law because I wanted to help make the world a better place. How can we all get along? And of course, as we know, really the underlying, even in mediation, it still shows up, I think, although I never really did any mediation, is it's win and lose. My clients, I got to get the best deal, and if I have a lawyer, I'll get the best. Just that kind of environment. So so in retrospect, realized that it was all the same thing. It was just a different, I mean, the same reason. I was practicing law and moving into this, that this was where I saw, oh, this is the way I can help people have the lives they really want and help us all get along. And but it was interesting. It was challenging too, because here I was moving out of law with this identity, and people knew me in Arkansas because of the positions I'd been in, and I was very active as a lawyer and in other activities. But then when I got to California, here I'm an unknown person. But the main thing was that it took, even though I was clear this was the right path, I was happy that I'd done it. It took about 9 months to a year before my being caught up with this change. Like my identity. It felt awkward. It felt uncomfortable. It was almost like, my shame energy came up in that, you know, you went from being a lawyer to a trainer for some weird company. What are you doing? And so, I mean, so, yeah, about half my friends and my family were in that camp, and then the other half were going, go for it. But out in the world, when I'd meet new people meet new people or something, it was embarrassing in a way to say I was doing this. And so that is one thing that I think is challenging for all of us when we do these pivots or make these moves, that we think it should just be so exciting and it's all great, instead of, well, it takes a while because we're so identified with this other identity. I'm a lawyer. We even say that I am a lawyer, and so we think I'm a lawyer. No, I'm a human being expressing my life, and hopefully in alignment with this force that we're living. I call it consciousness or source, aliveness, and we're living this. And I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so it goes in different ways, but but yeah, so it just took a while for this body mind, if you will, emotionally and psychically, to finally, for it to kind of feel like vump, like, yeah, this is the right for me. Even though intellectually I knew it, I had no doubts about it, but the feeling part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's really fascinating what you're sharing, because a couple things I'm hearing that I would love to have you share more about. So one, I'm speaking next week at a summit called Rest to Rise Summit. If any listeners are hearing, it's a virtual summit, and I can put the sign up link in the comments, and it's free for lawyers and other professionals. And I'm speaking on identity rest. We're covering a variety of speakers covering 6 different types of rest that the summit founder has identified that can help. And one of them is identity rest. So what you're speaking on is exactly that. Is, we say, I am a lawyer, or even, could be, I am a mother, I am a wife, or whatever. There's all these roles that we identify, and we sort of confuse who we are with our role. And I would love if you could speak more to a little bit about this identity shift piece and what helped you transition. Sort of, I view it, I don't know if you view it this way, as a little bit of a letting go, perhaps, or a surrender of an old identity and into something new, or maybe even to a non-identity. But I'm curious if you could speak a little bit to this identity piece, because I do
Well,
think it can keep people quite stuck, that clinging
yes.
to an identity.
Yeah, and I didn't really realize at the time that that's what was going on. I didn't have the background that like that you're talking about now, or that I have now around identity. So at the time, it was just this discomfort that just kept nagging at me. Like again, this feeling awkward to say I'm work for this training company, or I'm a coach and I work for this training company, and so I didn't have the language or an experience with it. But with regard to your question, yeah. So we do our language and our culture sets us up for that. And nobody's doing anything wrong. I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing, but it's part of it's to be aware that that's what's happening. Anytime I say I am something, then we're identifying with it. Even so, we want to be careful how we finish that sentence, because if we say whatever it is often enough, then we just our being thinks, well, that's who we are, instead of like what you're saying is, well, maybe I'm not any of these labels. Maybe I'm not a daughter or a mother or a coach, a lawyer, or an advisor, or whatever. Maybe that's not who I am. Those, like you're saying so wonderfully, these are roles that I'm carrying out. Well, then the question is, well, then if I'm not those roles, then what am I? What am I? And that is a great question. Well, that's the historical question. For thousands of years, they say that's the question most people don't ask is, yeah, who am I or what am I? And as we, well, first, there's creating some sort of spaciousness around I'm not these things. So it's useful to just not and take it on like a concept, but to experientially look at, well, what do I identify with, and then to see that, and then to and then to seriously ask in what I call inquiry way. So who am I? And look within, and not answer it intellectually. Although that question can be a bit challenging, who am I? That's what they say to say. But the thing that helped me the most, and it's from Rupert Spira's book, Being Aware, is he suggested this to ask, am I aware? And if we pause, then most of the time people, okay, yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware that I'm talking. I'm aware that Jesse's there. And so I'm aware. Okay. And then, am I aware that I'm aware? And in that, because we realize, well, yeah, I just said I'm aware. So there's something else that somehow knew. And it's that knowing is who we really are, that knowing. And when we can stay there, and it just takes a second, and that's why a lot of people, anyway, it's the most powerful question we could ever ask and discover. And it's that simple and it's that fleeting is why most people miss it, because it's like, oh, it can't be that. But if we sit with it and or in my experience, it's just so calming, and that peace, and that's our essential nature. That's who I am, and it's been with me my whole life. So I'm not directly answering your question, because you said if there's a surrender or whatever. So back then when I did it, it was just somehow one day it just all kind of, I think, just sticking with it long enough. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that could have been shortened if I'd understood what was going on, and realized what I was doing, and then had spent some well, I don't want to say spent time, but if I'd asked a different, even if I didn't know what I just said, if I just sat with that what would be a different question? So, well, to realize how, oh, yeah, so to notice what that my emotional tie to being a lawyer, to ask a few questions around that, to notice that the what I make up about that, what that means to be a lawyer, what that means to be this or that, how I think other people see me, and then to look more deeply at, but what really matters to me,
Yes.
and maybe that be more what I connect to, is to realize what matters to me is that's the what I really want to express. So then identity kind of gets out of the whole way back to your question, and maybe there's not really an identity, and that's really accurate. That really is accurate. That who we are is this source awareness, spirit, um, and we're not this identity.
Beautiful, Peggy. I love this inquiry and this description that you've given. It's so, I find a lot of this is like beyond words. It's ineffable. It's very hard to describe any of this. So there's like limits, so much limit to language. So you've done such a masterful job of attempting to capture something that is really beyond language, I think. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So I'd say about a third of the lawyers I work with are interested in a career pivot. Many of them are not, but some are. And this identity piece is a huge part. And I'll share a little story. I
Well,
have a
yeah, I'd like to hear more about how you talk about it and work with it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, I'll share a short story, an example of how this can show up. A client of mine just left law, and she's a really fascinating person because she actually became a lawyer because her parents were immigrants, and English was not their first language, and it was her mother's dream to become a lawyer. And she sat for and could not pass. She failed the California bar 9 times. Her mother. So the daughter, who was my client, took the bar, became a lawyer for her mother. And the law was just not the right fit for her. And she had a lot of health problems, a lot of challenges, and tried to make it work. And it just wasn't a good fit for her. So she just left last month. She resigned from her firm. And she's in this unknown now. She actually doesn't have a new job lined up, but she felt it was time to leave. So she's in this place of not who she was, not at least the role. She's let go of one role. She doesn't know the next role and is a kind of a groundless place. And she's quite young. She's I think 29. And a lot of us, it's like midlife tends to be where a lot of us wrestle with these concepts. So for her, she's a little younger than that. And she mentioned that she was invited to a party tonight, actually. It would be 6 people. And she's not going because she knows they're going to ask about her job, her work situation. And the identity piece, like saying, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know what I'm doing next. She's not comfortable having these conversations yet.
So hard.
And I totally get it. I felt that discomfort myself for quite a few years. So yeah, I just wanted to share that story because I think this identity piece really it can take time to let it go, but it's something we grapple with, we wrestle with a lot. It can be really tricky and it can keep us kind of stuck.
Yeah, very much so, because we've been conditioned to be oriented around trying to keep that identity safe and protected and feel good and feel comfortable, and that's what we get oriented around. And in actuality, when we pursue what we truly want, when we listen to that and we pursue that, and so we're not looking to what we intellectually want or what society wants or what a good person would want or what my parents would want, and we start really listening to ourselves and pursue what we want, then it's that once we start pursuing that, and if we're doing it authentically, then we also, which is very challenging, have to let go of the idea that it's going to make us feel good or make us safe or make us happy. That as long as we're focused on any of that, then we're gonna be living our life around trying to be safe, trying to be happy, trying to be secure. And if we look very closely, that doesn't last. It's
Yeah.
not something that's sustainable. We can be happy. We can, have this new boyfriend and oh, this is so great. Now the world's great. And then 2 weeks later, he won't pick up his socks or something, and then we're mad at him. And so we realize how fleeting these emotions are, that we're hoping the next job or the next career or the next relationship or the next bank account will help us feel that. And so it's like you're saying, like we're both saying, and it's very challenging to allow ourselves to move beyond that. And it's just a matter of constantly the inquiry work or the
Mhm.
noticing that, oh yeah, I'm getting caught up in wanting to feel better right now, but what do I really want? What do I really want? That we shift that focus from trying to make ourselves happy to shift the focus to, well, what do I really want? And then pursue that.
Yes. Absolutely. I love this. And the question, what do I really want? I find some people, I mean, I've found that question to be like mind blowing before because we
It's
don't really give
no,
ourselves
no.
permission to ask
Mm-mm.
that.
Yeah.
And I think about law school. It's like, when was a career counselor admission, whoever at the law school, when does anyone, I mean, they have to serve so many people. They don't have maybe the ability to do this with each individual student. But when were we ever asked, no, what do you really want? It's, oh, I remember the pressure, get the highest paying job you can get the best, most prestigious law firm you can it was never, well, what do you want? And I can remember interviewing, and there were certain firms where I actually liked the people a lot more. I was like, this is a nice environment. These are funny, nice people. But then that pressure, no, 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 take highest salary, most prestigious. This is what you need for your future. That program, it can be very hard. Like, it's what we actually want is often not even in the
Yeah.
discussion.
No, no. And we don't even know, most of us don't know how to access that. We don't, like you're saying, we're so, the TV shows and the school system tells us what we should want
Yes.
and it's hard. Now I will say think what I think, because we can tell a lot of things are not working out so well right now in the world. A lot of things are collapsing, changing
Yes.
dramatically. Uh, so I think right now is also actually an incredible opportunity if could, the more of us that can really listen to what do I really want, and then it's that internal listening. It's a different kind of listening where we kind of listening to our heart or maybe our solar plexus, whatever the place is for us where we're paying more attention there. And what is it I really want? That I think there are probably lots of opportunity and ideas floating around that if we could listen, we'll be bringing a lot of new things into the world, new ways of doing business, new types of careers, new types of business and work, because the collapse of a lot of things means something new is coming, something new's emerging. So the better we can get at this listening. But another way to listen, even though I'm talking about going within, is to pay attention to what we're interested in out in the world, what gets our attention. I call them
Yeah.
breadcrumbs. They're kind of these things that we know. Oh, what did that person say?
Mm.
I just noticed something. What was that? So it might be a word or a line that touched us in some way, and so that can start giving us clues to what we really want.
I love that. I love these breadcrumbs. That's something I have said something somewhat similar with clients
Mhm.
who feel very disconnected from what they want. Is I've said, when you're at a party or a networking event or something, like, what is it that you hear and you're, whoa, they're talking, and you're really engaged in that conversation. What holds your attention? If you watch documentaries or read nonfiction, like, what is it that you love to learn about? What do you get immersed in? And as a starting place. And then if that doesn't work, sometimes I go back to childhood. What did you just get lost in as a child? Because I think our essence is very apparent as young children and sometimes toward the end of life. And it's this middle part of life where we're productive and, working and having career, and where we can kind of get a little lost. But I think so. Sometimes I go back to the childhood and just like, what did you love? What lit you up? What made you feel alive as a child? As just a starting place.
Yeah. Well, sometimes even reading the paper, I'll go to the sports section first. And I'd go, well, why do I go to the sports section first? And I'd really look at that. I realized, oh, I love people's stories.
Yeah, me too.
I love how do they win the golf tournament, or something about the story of the golf tournament. I watch a lot of golf for some reason. I don't, but although golf is a great metaphor for how to live life, you hit the ball and then you better forget everything that came before and just be present right now with what needs to happen next. So it could go on and on about that. But I realized, well, that's why, because I'm just so curious about people. I love hearing their life story. And so things like that too, we realize, oh, I go to the financial section first. Okay, well, it could be a conditioned behavior, but it could also be maybe there's something about money or finance or a business opportunity. But if I just started reading the financial section more with that in mind, then something new can occur for me.
Yes, this is I often think following our curiosity is the
Yeah.
way. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
this is what you're talking about is, and also reminds me of what you shared earlier about working with identity and like we are awareness, and then going a step back, the I that is aware, and all doing that type of inquiry. What I'm reminded of now is observing, becoming kind of the observer of ourself, like you just said, noticing what am I drawn to in the newspaper. Interesting. When we're not being told what to do, when it's not a boss or somebody, you need to do that, or the accountant, you need to get me this for the taxes, whatever. When we're not being told what to do, like what do we organically, spontaneously desire to do or to learn about? That can provide some insight.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then to notice also things that we don't like. Like
Yeah.
I've quit jobs before. Well, I quit a job once because of how I was being treated. It's like, not gonna be treated like that. I had no savings, no nothing, but I gave them my note. I got over my being annoyed with how they were treating me, and the next day I said I'm leaving. So also noticing what again, but that's part of what matters to me, how I want to be treated, how I want to feel in my life. And again, that's a little dicey because, our feelings come and go. They're like the weather. I can be happy an hour ago and in another
Yeah.
hour be upset about something. But how I want to be treated, there's an underlying, like respected or respect, which, I can be respected and then sometimes not feel good about it because they might be telling me the truth about something that doesn't feel great, but I can tell I was respected. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, kudos to you for doing that, because I can't tell you how many lawyers I talk to who are, in environments with at least one toxic person. It maybe not the whole environment, but they are, subjected to some pretty harsh treatment and don't feel confident to kind of advocate for themselves in that way.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not recommending that people do what I did, but unless you want to, but I've never
Yes.
suggested a client just quit till
No.
they're ready.
Yes.
What if you need a savings account before you can do it? All right,
Yes.
let's get you a savings account.
That's right. Exactly. I'm always like, let's zoom out. What are your financial needs? Make sure
Right,
you're
right,
okay. Because
exactly.
ultimately, if we throw ourselves into a crisis, a true crisis, like we
Yeah.
truly can't pay the rent or the mortgage or whatever, our amygdala, like our nervous system, we're just going to not be able to really see it clearly, our path forward. So yeah, I try to help the clients not to create a crisis. But many lawyers do have like a few months of stuff that
Yeah.
they can get by, and we can minimize our spending and stuff too. Yeah, at those times. Um, so Peggy, I would love if you could share a little bit about the work you're currently doing with clients, supporting clients. And I know you do a variety of things, but if you could just share a little bit about your current work.
So right now I'm working a lot with business owners and some of them are lawyers, so they can be a lawyer business owner or executives where they're reaching what I'm calling a turning point. Now, to them, it might not feel like a turning point. It might feel like I'm really stuck. I'm burned out, or if it's a business owner that I've reached a ceiling with my finances, or it could be that I really want to pursue another angle in my business, but I can't because I'm so trapped in the day-to-day management and leadership of the organization. And of course, that happens a lot in corporations too. This sense that everything comes to me, and I don't know how to turn it back over to other people. So I'm doing a lot of work with that, helping people first. Sometimes I call myself the expert business interpreter because I help them be able to start interpreting what's really going on here. It may not be what it looks like it is. So let's look at what's really going on here, and then back to, and what do you really want? And then helping them you know come up with strategies around what they want, but also it's the inner work like we've been talking about where um, they so oftentimes these situations that we get in around ceilings in the organization, either financially or in a a larger organization, the leadership not able to, it doesn't feel like shared leadership, shared responsibility. Like I've got to pull them along. That it's what's necessary at that point is to understand people in a different way, to understand myself, and back to identity. Part of it's identity, and then part of it is some skill building around around well, one of the biggest breakdown in business is people don't know how to make effective requests and evoke effective promises and then manage breakdowns. So that's one thing I do a lot with everybody I work with, whether they're a lawyer wanting to change a career or a business owner that's wanting their workload to be taken on by other people. So it's a lot of culture work, and but it's this because back to identity, really when we reach these ceilings financially or some other thing in a corporation, it's identity related, which is I don't want to let go of the business. Now deep down, I mean, I might say I do. I'm burned out, I'm tired of this, I want out of here, or I want to go do something else. But they're so tied to who they are in relationship in the business that they can't turn it over to other people because they're really deep down afraid of letting that go. Who am I if I'm not the person that's running the business and not in charge? And so I work with people with regard to that, and then if they're executives in an organization, again, it's often the same thing that it's that they they're worried about their own future if something goes haywire. So I'm helping them see themselves and the people they work with differently. First, this identity, but then also bring in some skills around creating the culture and the dynamics that they need. And let's see. Well, like one organization I helped by doing what we're talking about here, I helped them go from 8.5 million to 12.25 in 9 months. And then another
Wow.
organization worked with their whole management team so that the owner could leave and go right place. He wanted to still own the business, but didn't want to manage it or run it every day. And so he wanted to go right place, and he did, and he won a Tony for it. And then he eventually sold the business, and the new owners loved the management. So it's helping everybody start realizing their interdependence in the organization. They're not silos. How do we perspective changing? I hope this is making sense. But anyway, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's what I'm doing a lot now with organizations, either 2 to 20 million to 50 million dollar businesses, to also or larger organizations with whole departments in their organizations, so that everybody is together accomplishing what needs to be accomplished.
Yes, this is great. I mean, I love hearing the results. Like they speak for themselves, what you're doing. So it sounds like, it's deep transformational work in the business space,
It
in
is.
business strategy, but the results speak for themselves. So I'm curious if you could share, I would love to hear your thoughts on, we've been talking about identity, and if we were able to really let go of this sense of identity being tied to our professional role, what do you think is possible? Like what might open up for someone?
Well, Joseph Campbell apparently said that when people say they want more meaning in their lives, that he thought, because he's no longer alive, but he thought what most people meant is they want to experience more aliveness. So so that's one thing that I think is possible: this sense of freedom and aliveness, and then from it being in that experience of aliveness, then a different sort of possibility is available. So, for example, if I'm feeling restricted to, I'm a lawyer, or I can only do this, or yeah, so if I'm feeling restricted, then I can only access possibilities that are consistent with this restriction I'm experiencing. So when I work with people, I often work with their thinking and speaking. So they're what I call their language, what they're thinking and speaking. So noticing what they're thinking, but notice what I'm saying or not saying. And then my body. So my body. So if I'm feeling restricted because I've got to align with what society wants or something, I'm holding it in my body. So it's going to be somewhat tight or rigid or at a distance. So again, I'm only going to be able to access and be available for insights and ideas that are consistent with that restricted or rigid or too loose body. And then also my feelings and emotions and mood. Do I have an underlying mood in life, like optimism, openness, or maybe I've got a mood that's now become skepticism or something because of what's happening in the world? Well, I'm only going to be available for possibilities that are aligned now with this skepticism, this maybe tight body, and maybe and then what I'm talking about, like there are no possibilities, or I can only do. I've got to look on LinkedIn to see what jobs are available. And
Yeah.
so when I can be not when I can see that oh, that's what I'm doing. So that's one of the main things is having an insight, experiencing an insight about, oh, this is how I see myself. I see other people. Right then, transformation occurs. Then, because now I'm not beholden to that. Now it doesn't have me. I have it. I can see it. I'm not being run by these unconscious body patterns, thinking and speaking patterns, and mood patterns. And then I become more available and open. So then I can really start. I call it hearing, but um, some new ideas and possibilities. I'm available for them that I couldn't have been before when I'm focused on how I'm trying to fit into society in some way. It's like, we've all experienced it where we bought a gray car and we hadn't really noticed gray cars before, and then well, gray, every other car is gray. But anyway, let's say we got a blue car. We got a blue car, and I got a brand new blue car. And in fact, I had a cousin that got when they sold her the car, they said, "Yeah, there's hardly anybody with this blue car." And then the next day, she saw dozens of them. So it's like that. It's like once we loosen the hold of these conditioned behaviors by starting to look at them and notice them, become aware of them, then a whole other world opens up that wasn't available. And that can seem weird to people, like, yeah, right, but it's just true. So as we start loosening, and it doesn't mean we have to make the changes. That's the other thing. I think people sometimes get scared, like, well, if I do really look in the way that Jesse and Peggy are suggesting is possible, well, then I have to do it. No, you don't. You don't have to do it. But at least then you've started accessing what's possible, and so you might just start taking a few steps in a new direction, but you'll just be available for all kinds of other ideas, opportunities, people. You'll have different conversations than you had before. Um, so,
Yes, I
and
love
answer the
it.
question.
Beautiful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You really answered that beautifully. And I love what you're talking about with the brain and what we notice. And it's a totally accurate. Like, I mean, I think of it in terms of, are you familiar with David Hawkins and the map of consciousness?
Yeah, yeah.
I love it so much, and I love his work. But this idea that if we are, elevating our consciousness, or I'm also reminded of what Carl Jung said about until we make the unconscious conscious,
Mm,
it
yeah.
will run our life, and we'll call
Yeah.
it fate. So what you're talking about is bringing. I do this motion because I often think of it as like the basement. We're bringing something down. It's
Mm,
locked down in the basement, upstairs into the light, so we can look at it. So we're making things more conscious. We're becoming more conscious, and then we are now having more choice and more freedom, and seeing new opportunities that
mm.
were maybe always there that we were not able to see before.
Yeah, we just can't see them. Any of us, like you and I mean, I've been coaching for 38 years. I have never been without a coach once I learned of coaching,
Yeah, me.
because
Yeah,
of
yeah.
this what we're talking about right now. I know I'm limited by my perspective, no matter how much it's expanded over all these years because of the coaching I've had, the training, the study, the everything. But it's still limited. So I always want somebody else in my life that can help me keep expanding my own possibilities, my own ability to work with people as clients, and just my family. How to be with my family. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And I find, I don't know about you, like different coaches or teachers or guides at different times for
Yeah.
different things. So, like the first coach I worked with 5 years ago was played a very powerful role in my life for a time. But then, I've worked with very different people since then, and I continue to work with different people. Like it's just, what do they say when a student is ready, the teacher appears?
Hmm.
So the
Hmm.
right guide, coach, teacher, they have appeared for different kind of phases for different things. Well, Peggy, this has been so inspiring and interesting, and it's like what your content is to me. It's thought provoking. It's like mind bending a little bit. It's really insightful, but also practical. Like you said, the results that you're able to help your clients achieve are measurable results in this world. So, this has been a really great conversation. And for those listeners who would like to learn more about you and your work, where can they connect with you?
The best place is on LinkedIn. So I guess you'll put that in the notes or something. Yeah. So my
Mhm.
LinkedIn profile is the best place, or they can email me, Peggy at Peggy-O'Neal, ONEAL.com. So those are the best two ways. I
Great.
would
Well,
love to hear
yes.
from people. I love to hear from people. So
Okay,
please
wonderful.
connect with me on LinkedIn and or email me.
Okay, thank you, Peggy. So we will put that in the show notes, your email and your LinkedIn profile. And to all our listeners who have joined us today, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you.
And this is Returning to Soul. If you have found this helpful, please rate this podcast, share it with anyone who might find this useful. And I'm so glad you've joined us. Until next time, be well.